All right, it is now 2 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual office hours. Um, if you haven't done so yet, please type in your name and your district in the chat box and your responses to our two questions that's showing on our screen. Um, while you do that, I'd just like to reintroduce our effectiveness team who are here with me today. We have, to begin with, Rodney Evans, whose buckets include SLOs and our new Micro-Credential Academy. We have Beverly Flight, whose buckets include special areas and EPPs. We have Dr. Hartwell, whose buckets include data and project management of SELE.org. We have Dr. Kim Howard, whose buckets include induction and mentoring. We have Dr. Vicky Traufler, who is our team leader and PADEP coordinator. We also have with us our fearless director, Dr. Lila Tolman Sagar. And we're lucky today to have some guests joining us. We have a district guest. We'll have Patricia Trish Davis with us for a segment later on. And we also have partners from NIET, Stephanie Mosquita and Paulette Rowell joining us today. So continue answering the questions on the slide. And I just wanted to go over again our platform. For those who are unfamiliar with Microsoft Teams, for your control icons, just hover in the middle of your screen. These icons for raising your hand, chat, will show there, also for muting and unmuting yourself. If you have a newer version of Microsoft Teams, these icons will be on the upper right of your screen. And you might even notice some new engagement features there wherein you can give a clap or a quick heart or thumbs up as an engagement for our presentation today. So at this time, if you have muted yourself, please do so. When you have something to share, please raise your hand so that we can call you to unmute and hop on the mic. So at this time, is there anybody that would like to hop on the mic? Just raise your hand to elaborate on your responses for either question 1 or 2 or for both. And I am giving you my virtual wait time.
Hey, Faye, it's Trish. We have...
Trish, I'm going to cut you off right now. If you are sharing about your special areas rollout, we have a spotlight set aside for you.
well, I heard that, but I wasn't sure if that's what... Yeah, okay, great. I'm stopping.
But you are welcome to share your answer. Maybe if you have a question for number 2, we'll have our guest respond to that later.
I'm good. Thank you, though.
Thanks, Trish. All right, so I think there are plenty responses in the chat. I'll just read some good things that I'm hearing from you, and then we'll move forward with our agenda. So many of you already said that you have trained those that you need to train. You are working on just communicating better, making sure that the special areas evaluators truly understand what the new evaluation tool is about. So we'll have more time for that. Beverly has that in a later segment. So we'll move on to the next slide just to go through our agenda overall. All right, and just to let you know, our April virtual office hours has been moved to April 14th. We understand that many districts are on spring break around the first week of April, so we have moved that. Thanks for those that asked that question to make sure that we address that. So for our agenda today, we have done our welcome. the next thing we're going to do is an evaluator test, just an overview of what's happening with the process for that. We'll also have time for SLE.org data and reports, some ADEPT implementation reminders, special areas evaluation updates, and again with our special district guest, and then time for group discussion and questions. If at any time you have questions, continue utilizing the chat. Rodney Evans is monitoring our chat. And of course, again, our team members, we already see responses from our director, Lila. We also see responses already from other members of the team. So keep those questions coming. Okay, so now let's discuss the SCTS 4.0 evaluator test. So last month, we shared reminders on how to identify those evaluators that are up for recertification. We also shared with you the different resources that they can use. And of course, we reassured you that the format for the test remains the same. So just to reiterate, the format of the test, part 1 is rating a lesson. And on that part, you can have an indicator rating off by 1 as many times and only off by 2 twice. And to be very clear, no indicator rating can be off by 3. And then part 2 is a multiple choice questions. You got to answer 6 correctly out of the 8 questions. Okay. Now let's talk about the 4.0 evaluator test questions that we have been receiving. So we'll talk about the test reminders, understand what interactions are, and some messages your educators might receive. So the first screenshot on this slide is from page 83 of the SCTS 4.0 workbook. You may also see this information in the Certification Assessment Overview document. That link will be dropped in the chat shortly for you for your quick access. So this is saying that educators may take the test in 24 hours if they fail either part 1 or part 2 of the test. So the second screenshot below will show on the educator's screen when they fail a part of the test for the first time. When they receive this, neither the educator nor the NIET district administrator need to contact NIET. The test will be available after 24 hours in the NIET SC ADEPT portal. Moving on, I'd like to share with you some screenshots, one other screenshot of a message that shows up when the interactions are exceeded by the test taker. So that happens when they have used their 3 allowed attempts. So an attempt is either an interaction or a failed attempt. And let's define what an interaction is. So as shown in the previous slide, interactions may mean starting the test and then either failing or stopping the test in any fashion. So sometimes test takers unintentionally stop the test in ways such as accidentally closing the test or accidentally closing the video lesson. They may have poor internet connectivity that cuts off their test. And they might be idle for more than 10 minutes. And then sometimes their own device settings go on hibernation or lockout. So when the educators get the message shown on this slide for using their 3 interactions, they can email support@niet.org directly. They will get the reset. For 2 failed attempts, the district ADEPT administrator in the NIET portal must approve or request the reset. Districts should provide support to the evaluator who failed in the form of addressing areas of weaknesses. So you can use the resources that we have from our refresher training, and that's available in the ADEPT support portal as shown on the other screenshot. So this support is the district's responsibility. So after you give them the support that they need, go ahead and contact NIET to request the reset. And to request that reset, we have it on the slide as well, what you need to do. You need to contact support@niet.org. And I just noticed that typo, so I'll fix that on the slide. There's only one E in niet.org. Send in the educator's first and last names, the CID or the current email address. And actually, if you can send those both, the CID and the email, that would be wonderful. This will provide NIET record keeping and make sure that they are going through the correct account. Okay, we'll now move on to the next slide. All right, so just letting you know that as the District Adept Administrator in the NIET SE Adept portal, you also have access to a report to see the progress of educators taking their SETS 4.0 evaluator test. So you'll see on the first screenshot how to get to that report. So you need to click on Administration, Reports, Teacher Educator Certification Records Export. And then the second screenshot is showing you an example of that. I blocked out information below the name, email, role, and certification ID columns. But just looking at the status 1 and status 2 columns, it'll tell you what's happening with the process of retest, of test taking for your educator. So we just want to make sure that you know that if you have a question about whether an evaluator has actually experienced difficulty or is trying to game the exam, quote unquote, please contact NIET. From NIET's perspective, they can see a more detailed report of what the interactions were. There are some cases where educators click a video, close a video, start another video without ever attempting to rate the lesson. It may be a good time to remind the evaluators that the video lessons are randomly generated and that they should trust their knowledge and experience with the use of the rubric for any grade level or content area. Okay, remind them not to fear rating a lesson that is not their own area of expertise. If your evaluators fail again after second attempt, offer them the support they need and refresh them in areas where they believe they are weak. So before wrapping up this section, I'd like to introduce Stephanie Mesquita and Paulette Rowell from NIET. We allocated a few minutes for them to be able to provide support and answers to your questions around the SETS 4.0 evaluator tests. Rodney, are there questions around the NIET portal or evaluator test reset?
No, I'm just gonna reply back to Melissa directly. I think we're good on that.
Hello, hi, this is Anita Parker from Beaufort. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, Anita, go ahead.
Hey, I just want to make sure I understand. So we're talking about those folks who are already certified evaluators for SETS 4.0 and their research. And did I hear you say if they fail the research exam twice, that we should support them and then allow for a reset? Do they not have to go through training again?
So the support that you're giving them is just a refresher based on their weaknesses, and you don't need to send them to a full 3-day training.
Okay, because that's new, right?
The refresher training resources are located on the SC Adept support portal. That training, if you do the entire refresher training, is only about 4 hours. If you did
Hold on, Lila, because you're vibrating. Your voice is vibrating. Okay. I can't hear it, Lila.
But it can certainly be customized.
It's not coming through clearly. But I'll look at the resources. Just as long as I understand they don't necessarily have to go through the 3-day training. That's correct.
I think what she was saying, Anita, is that you can pull those resources off the NIET portal. That they can be customized.
Yes.
That if you run that full training from start to from start to finish is about 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
And that could certify as that refresher before they go through and take it again. And she's putting those notes in the chat.
Okay.
Lila, is that accurate? Yeah, she's saying.
Yes, Julie, you summed it up perfectly. Districts are required to retrain folks who are unsuccessful twice, but you have the power over exactly how that looks. We have provided the materials for that. And then you would just send directly to NIET the name of the folks that need the reset.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure thing. Great question.
Melissa, it looks like Rodney is going to assist you with that one. If anybody else is in that situation that needs to have access as administrator in the NIET SE Adept portal, you can email support@niet.org directly and CC your regional support so that we are aware that you have contacted NIET. And by that, we are, vouching for you. Stephanie, we might need you to hop on the mic for this one question from Cheryl. Can more than one person in a school district be notified of the expiring 4.0 certification? I think how we have it set up is that if it is the district administrator in the portal, that they get that copy. So as long as we have that person noted as an administrator, that person will also be notified. And Lila, you might need to jump into just to let us know if we are putting a limit on those number of administrators for each district.
Sure. So I think if, this is Stephanie. Hi, everyone. I think if someone wants someone in addition to who the assigned person is in the platform, they could let us know and we can add that as long as that is okay with you guys, Lila and Faye.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think we just, as Faye mentioned, CC your adept contact so we can be in the loop. We never want to be in the position where we don't know who has those permissions in the district, but we're fine if you have multiple people. We just ask you not to put, your whole district staff on there. Be selective.
Thanks for that, Lila. And Chad, Beverly has already responded to you. You will get that assistance later on. Are there any other questions that we may have missed? Anybody who needs to hop on the mic before our friends from NIET head out?
Faye, let me ask this question. This is Kenneth Wilson from Dorchester 2. How do we address name changes on the NIT portal? Do we have to upload a separate spreadsheet with those name changes to have it updated on their certificates, etc., for the certification?
Hi, Kenneth. So we did send, I think, a link for the spreadsheet to use in either the January or February newsletter, but we'll happy to pull that and send that to you directly. I just have to remember which one exactly it is. So for those name changes, email address changes, if there's corrections with the CID, if it was still an accidental EID that was given in the past, it's the same spreadsheet to use. NIET did share, however, that if it's a change just at the ending of your email addresses, if that makes sense, if it's k12.se.us and it became se.gov, a different ending, that you can contact them at support@niet.org directly. And Stephanie, correct me for that if I did not state that correctly about the process, if it was just the changing of the whole ending of the email address.
Yeah, so I would say that if you've got a large number of folks that you want to update across a district or across a building, then definitely I would encourage you guys to use that spreadsheet template that Faye just mentioned. In the event that you've got just one individual here or there, folks with the school administrator access level can edit users. So you would just go to your administration tab, go to users, select the user, select edit, and then you can update first, last name spellings. You can update their email address, those kinds of things. So either way, but we're happy to help regardless of whichever approach meets your needs best.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. As you guys know, we're just an email away, and hoping you guys have a blessed day. Take care.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Also to Paulette, we'll let you off. Thank you. All right. So now I will pass on the mic to Dr. Kim Howard for her section on SLE.org data.
All right, thanks, Faye, and good afternoon to you all. First, we just want to commend those of you who've been using that data that you find in SC Lead to inform your decision making. And we just wanted to take a few minutes today just to highlight a couple of those reports that are available in SC Lead that might be useful to you at this time of the year. When you click on the districts and schools and select ADEPT under the reports option, you'll not only save yourself some time in identifying the data that's there, but it'll also give you some specific feedback that you could share with evaluators and principals and other district level staff regarding the status of the educator evaluations in the district. So the reports that we're highlighting today will be the evaluation SLO's ADEPT report and the staff evaluation observations ADEPT report, as these will prove useful in your routine monitoring of the evaluation process. All right, so the first report you see here is this evaluation SLO report. And this report is very useful in just giving you an overall look at how the district is progressing with the SLO process. And in the report, you can see all SLOs that have been input and whether each conference in the SLO process has been signed by the educator and the SLO approver. Okay, and you'll see a screenshot here of what that'll look like. Okay, go ahead. And just here are some potential questions that one might ask when looking at this report to kind of gauge progress. You can ask, why haven't any of the final SLOs been signed? And if you look at that last column in this report, you'll see all those no's. You really want to think about your district's evaluation timeline and think about the time of the year. Here we are at the beginning of March. Should we have more of those SLOs having been signed at this point? It really just depends on where your district is and its timeline, but that's something that you might want to think about. Should more of those SLOs be taken care of at this point? Another question, question 2, why did that educator that you see highlighted on that first highlighted row, that educator 2, why didn't this educator sign the preliminary SLO? That might be something that you want to follow up with that SLO approver about. There may be some information and reasoning behind why that educator hasn't signed. A third question you see here, if you look at that third highlighted row, you might want to ask, when was the last check-in with that educator on line 6? I see there are no signatures since that preliminary SLO conference. Now, keep in mind that mid-conference is not required. It's something that some of you said you wanted there just to kind of align with the other processes. It's not required, but I haven't seen much activity since that very first conference. So it may benefit me to follow up and see what's happening with that teacher and with that SLO. And then finally, a fourth question that I have here is, has this SLP been assigned a professional goal? And you'll see at the bottom of the screen, we have that speech language professional. And we know that they are not required to complete SLOs. So we wouldn't expect to see those columns completed, but we do want to ensure that they are receiving feedback on goals. So we just want to ask a question, is this person working on a professional goal? Okay. So another report, the second report we're highlighting, this staff evaluation observation report. It proves really useful in giving you an overall view of where individual educators stand in terms of observations completed. So as you can see from this screenshot, that report gives us data regarding all fall and spring observations that have been completed to date. And it gives us details such as the observation type, whether it was a walkthrough or a full observation, the name of the observer, whether the observer and educator have signed off on the observation. It's especially useful in you ensuring that the appropriate number of observations are occurring for educators based on their contract levels, because it gives you those educators' names and it tells you whether they've had the spring and the fall observation. So it'd be really useful in making sure that you have those numbers prior to the end of the year. Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then here are some potential questions you might ask when you're looking at this report to gauge some progress. The first one is, why didn't that last educator sign the observation? Just to get some details about what's happening there. And then secondly, when do you expect to begin spring observations for these educators? Again, we really want to think about the district timeline and consider whether we should have some more spring observations having occurred at this point in the year. We're going to be nearing the end of our optional timeline very soon. And so we just want to make sure that we go ahead and get those observations in. And this report really gives us really good data to think about that. And these are just a couple questions that you can think about. Of course, when you're looking at your own district reports, you may have more, but really we just wanted to remind you to use these reports to your benefit. So if you have any questions about any of these reports, just please go ahead and post those in the chat. And otherwise, I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Hartwell to share with you some steps about ADEPT implementation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Howard. I saw some things populate in the chat, but I think Lily is responding, so thanks everybody. Want to just take a minute and talk about some ADEPT implementation reminders. On the next slide, you're going to see a few of these, which I know are already familiar to you, but we did want to take a minute just to make sure everybody was on the same page. That during the final evaluation cycle, you really need to keep your eye on the following. Okay, this is information, as I said, is not new to you, and it can be found in the process manual, but we did want to go through it very quickly. So first, all observations, remember, during the final cycle are unannounced, that you should continue to make sure that evaluators know those post-conferences have to happen within 5 days of the observation. And also during this cycle, the school leader or whomever they've assigned will go ahead and get their professionalism ratings in SC Lead. So just a quick reminder that even if you put professionalism ratings in the in the fall, it is the professionalism rating that is in the spring, and the final cycle is the one that SC Lead will use to calculate the overall score. And if you happen to have 2 professionalism ratings in the final cycle, in the spring, in SC Lead, if you happen to have 2, the system is going to choose the last one. So you want to make sure that if you've got folks that are entering professionalism ratings, that they are very clear that it's only going to calculate from the professionalism ratings that were entered in the final cycle. And if there are more than one, if there are 2 or more, it's going to take the final, the last professionalism rating to calculate the overall score. Okay, finally, and this is if applicable to your district's scoring model, if you're using the consensus scoring model, you need to make sure that consensus meeting happens during the final cycle. And then the final evaluation SLO conference should, of course, occur before May the 1st. The final evaluation conference and the final SLO conference can be combined to utilize time, and many of you have done that in the past, so please continue to do that. So just wanted to take an opportunity to roll through some of those final cycle reminders. On this next slide, you'll see just a brief reminder of sanctions. sanctions is coming up, but this is just a reminder of things to look out for if you have educators on highly consequential evaluations in your district. Remember that evaluations are considered highly consequential if one of two things are happening. If the educator has failed an annual summative evaluation and is now undergoing a second annual summative evaluation, or if the educator is returning back to the field following an expanded adept related certificate suspension and is being given that final opportunity to successfully complete a formal evaluation. So for these educators, please make sure that you check that you've got 3 people on the evaluation team. And under the current flexibility, these annual summative evaluations must have 3 observations in the preliminary cycle, and due to the flexibility, anywhere from 1 to 3 observations in the final cycle. Of course, that's dependent on the extent to which your district is using the flexibility. Most people go ahead and do 3 in the fall and 3 in the spring, but the flexibility is in place. So just remember that being sanctioned or being eligible for sanction is still a possibility if they fail that second annual summative, even with the flexibility that we have in place. So if you have educators who look like they might be eligible for sanctions, please be sure to review their records to make sure, number one, that they've got the correct number of evaluators. I think I'm on the prior slide. Thank you. Can't quite finish. Number one, if they are have the correct number of evaluators and they've got the required number of observations in the system. All of you are going to receive an email from me asking you to confirm if you have any sanction eligible educators in your district shortly after that June 20th deadline, where you're required to make sure all of your educator evaluation data is in the system. Okay, so just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to rehearse that before we got too deep into the final cycle. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So finally, just a couple of additional reminders here. We are sharing, and my apologies, want to make sure I had something ready. We are sharing 2 additional reminders that should help you in the final cycle. Remember that all districts are required to give written notice to all currently employed teachers regarding the status of their employment for the upcoming year before May 1st, which essentially is by April the 30th. So regardless of whether employment was offered to the teacher on February 1st or on April 30, that teacher still has until May the 10th to give written notice to the district regarding his or her decision. So there was a memo put out on February 23rd. We are providing, my apologies, we're providing the link to you in the chat if you need to go back and refresh your understanding about what that means and to get more detail. So then we have another item here of importance, because we are very proud to share that SCDE is partnering with NIET to offer additional training on effective blended learning, right? And it starts this month in March. So that registration is open. I've dropped the link there in the chat box. It's open. The training is free of charge to South Carolina educators, and we just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that training is available to you and to folks in your district. Okay, so we've got both of those links to the memo and to the training registration for the blended learning in the chat. Rodney, are there any questions there, or we can certainly tackle them at the end, but just want to make sure we didn't have any questions on that particular section.
Yeah, we're good. I think we're working on a response for someone from earlier, but we're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Beverly Flythe.
Can everybody hear me? Okie dokie.
Yes, we can hear you,
Having some technical difficulties on my end, but we will power through. Thanks, everybody. Okay, let's look at some special areas updates. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to review a few things that may be new to you or updates for the special areas evaluations and tips for you for right now. As always, please reach out to me directly if you have any questions or issues with special areas evaluations or with Moodle. Just a few reminders that in order to be granted manager rights in Moodle, special areas managers must attend the special areas train the trainer. As a reminder, there is one special areas manager identified per district, identified by the ADEPT coordinator, who has the rights to assign evaluators to training in Moodle. Rodney's dropping that link in the chat now. Each evaluator training takes between 2 to 4 hours to complete. We've streamlined the process as much as possible, but strongly recommend that SAMs begin assigning evaluators to training soon in order to prepare for the 21-22 school year. Our office is continuously collecting feedback and data from our pilot districts in order to fine-tune the guidelines, the rubrics, and the new cut scores in time to take everything to the state board in June. Be on the lookout for more information as it develops. We don't anticipate any major changes to the rubrics or major changes to the process, so please do not hold off on sharing those resources with your educators and your evaluators. We don't want anybody to be surprised that they have a new instrument when August comes. Once you've been identified as your district special areas manager, also referred to as the SAM, and have completed special areas train the trainer, your next step is to create your account in Moodle. The link for Moodle does not have the word Moodle in the web address. That has caused some confusion, so we want to point that out. The reason we refer to it as Moodle is because the actual web address is scleaders.mrooms.net, and we didn't want anyone to get that confused with sclead. They're not the same. Once you've used the quick guide for special areas managers to create your account, please email me to let me know at bfly@ed.sc.gov that your account has been created so that I can assign you the appropriate rights in Moodle. Don't forget to validate that email you received from Jason Rogers as the last step in your registration. Once you're set up in Moodle, email your evaluators the quick guide for special areas evaluators found in the Google folder that you were sent when you completed training. Once your evaluators let you know that they have set up their accounts in Moodle, you're all ready to follow the steps in your quick guide to assign them to training. After the evaluators complete their training, they should send you a copy of their certificate of completion so that you know they've completed the evaluator training. And you will then add their information to the spreadsheet template from the Google folder. Pro tip, we would advise to save a copy of the spreadsheet to your desktop for easy access, and then add to it as evaluators send you their information. Please use the spreadsheet to submit your evaluators for credentialing to Dr. Kim Howard. We know some of our smaller districts will not have long lists of evaluators to submit, and that's okay. Just accumulate as many evaluators as you can prior to submitting. We're asking you not to send one at a time to Dr. Howard because it's overwhelming to us, and it can be difficult for you to track who's evaluator trained and who isn't. And there's no need to submit their certificates for the evaluators. That's for your records and theirs. That's what the spreadsheet's for. Once you have a list of certified evaluators, and the number is, again, relative to your district, then email that spreadsheet to Dr. Kim Howard so that she can grant your evaluator credentials in sclead.org. And here are 2 frequently asked questions. I get these questions at least once a day. The first one is, hey, I'm the SAM for Bayside District and Principal Belding registered in Moodle, but I can't find him to enroll him in training. What am I doing wrong? Be certain that Principal Belding responded to the validation email he received from jrogers@ed.sc.gov in order to complete his registration in Moodle. Since those emails frequently get lost or caught in your district's spam or junk folder, please ask your evaluators to be on the lookout for that email from Jay Rogers within 24 hours of registering for Moodle. Sometimes it's the next day. This email does not come from our office, and I can't send it to you again or push it out to you any faster. So if you email me or call me about that, I'm going to ask you this one question first. Okay. The second most frequently asked question: I'm the SAM for my district, and when I try to complete the training, Moodle won't let me pass the introduction into Module 1. What's wrong with Moodle? Well, the answer is you need to create a student account using a different name or version of your name and a personal email address. If you put your CID in your registration as SAM, don't use it again for your student account. It's not required. Moodle is very sensitive and intuitive, and it'll try to continue to match you to your SAM account by that CID if you still are using it. Once you've created your student profile and validated it via the email from Jason, you will then need to log into your SAM account and enroll your student account in the course. Pro tip, keep your username, login, and password straight. Write them down, save them on a Post-it on your desktop, and keep them close. Switching back and forth between those two personas can be confusing, especially if you bookmark or save your logins on your desktop. And I think that finishes things for me. I'm handing it over now to Lila with some special guests.
Before I go to that, Beverly, we had the idea in the chat to maybe add the CID to the completion certificates for those educators. And I know that that certificate is something that is like built into Moodle. So I'll just pass that bright idea along to you. And I'm assuming we may have to ask Jason if that's possible, since it's not something we create.
That sounds about right. But I can follow up with Jason. No worries.
Awesome.
And I'll jump in also, Lila. It is an auto-generated certificate. We don't do anything with it at all. So that's why we put the certificate in the SAMS folder that could add their CID for renewal credits and things like that.
See, thank you, Kim. Teamwork,
That's
making
correct.
the dream work.
Yeah, that's correct. We did not have the capability of adding the CID to the certificate itself.
So I'm excited because many of you already shared your special area plans at the top of the hour. And I had a chance last week to talk to Trish and some of the folks from the Berkeley team. And I just thought the way they are thinking about rolling out special areas, both to evaluators and to their counselors and librarians, is just very humane and logical. So Trish, if you are still with us and you would be willing to come on and talk a little bit about how you're thinking about supporting your evaluators and then spreading the word to your counselors, librarians, and SLPs, I think that'd be really helpful. And we'd love to, you know, after Trish, invite anyone else who wants to share to do so as well.
Thank you, Ella. Yeah, our team got together and had some general discussions just within our office, and we have met with our district supervisors for speech, media, and counselors, and kind of started brainstorming some ideas about how we wanted to proceed. And we had some ideas. In the meantime, we also gathered, I put out an alert for any administrators, school administrators who wanted to be on a committee, just to give us that perspective as to what might be some as you said, humane ways, I appreciate that, to spread this information. So a couple of things that we did: we met with our district leaders first, and we developed some flyers for trainings. We pushed out the information to school administrators, and we just set a date that we want all our administrators trained. I think it was July 15th, so they have plenty of time. We also worked with our other district leaders, and since principals have monthly all-day meetings, we asked and were granted that they be given a designated time in those meetings to work on these trainings as well as their SCTS recertification exams, which they greatly appreciated that, especially with the special areas, because you can kind of stop and start. But it gives them some designated, focused time to really work on those required trainings because they have to do them. We also, we have started meeting with the district-led PLCs for speech, media, and counselors. They meet monthly. I created kind of a trimmed down kind of overview of this is what's coming. This is a general idea of what the rubric looks like. These are some major changes to give them an idea of what's coming down the pike. We also had someone in our office work on some training flyers, which were very, very cute. And so we have shared those. As I'm meeting with those PLCs, I'm not putting the flyers out first. We're meeting with the PLCs to give them an overview and then putting the information in their Google Share Drive along with the training flyer. And I also created a Google form for them to, if they are interested in the training, to submit their names to me so that we can make sure, because we did decide that we wanted our evaluators and mentors to have that continuing contract expectation for our district. So I would need to check that. And we also have principal posts that go out every week. And so information about tapping certain educators has been pushed out to them so that if they have some speech, media, or school counselors that are looking for expanding some of their skills, this would be a good avenue to take. The other thing that we've decided to do with our PLCs is to go ahead and do just the rubric training piece. And that way we're going to hit, or we should be able to hit, most of our educators with this information so that they go ahead and have some experience with it now before the beginning of the school year. So at the beginning of the school year, we can focus the time on processes and procedures because they will have already had the knowledge base and have had some time to work with the rubric throughout the rest of this school year.
Thank you so much for that, Trish. I just think you've been really thoughtful about every person in the process, from recruiting those new evaluators to the folks that are going to be evaluated, to really making sure that your administrators are on board. Do y'all have any questions for Trish from our participants out in districts? Go for it, Chad. Come on the mic.
Hey, Trish, I think that's a really good idea, and you really worked hard to get all that going in your district. I did want to ask, did you create any kind of handout or anything like that that you could just give a brief summary to the librarians and speech therapists and counselors about how they would be evaluated?
What I did was I kind of created and I pulled some slides. I hope that was okay because I'm like asking permission.
That's why they're there.
Forgiveness. I pulled some slides from the special area trainer training, just some generalized, like the major changes slides, the slide that talks about if you're an induction, this would be what your evaluation is going to look like. You're going to have observations and pre-conferences, how that's a big change, the timeline, and then the slide that talks about the components of the rubric to kind of explain how it works. So I don't mind sharing that at all. And I created one, and I have the 3 slides that have the indicators for speech. I keep saying media because it's been library media. So speech, library, and counselors. And then as I'm presenting to each PLC, like if I'm doing the library PLC, I just hide those couple of slides that are for speech and counselors. And so they're not seeing it. However, when I do finish the PLCs, I also put that PowerPoint in their share drive so they can go back and view it as needed. And it's just kind of a get ready, get set, this is coming. And so we're kind of trying to chunk that information out to them. So yeah, I don't mind. I'll be happy to share those.
Thank you so much, Trish. I appreciate the explanation.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We all have to stick together and help each other. And trust me,
especially this year.
Yeah, and trust me, they, you know, I ask questions all the time. So,
anybody else want to share where you are or ask a question? Cheryl, go for it.
So this can be for the group or for Trish. I've done the preliminary kind of overview for each of my 3 areas, and I guess the one that had the most angst, shock, whatever you want to think about it, was the school counselors group. Mm-hmm. And I think it was because the documentation that goes up front, the annual calendar, the goals, the plan, just seemed a little overwhelming to them in the beginning. So I guess, Trish, I was just wondering if you had a similar reaction, and to others out there, to kind of give you a little forewarning. That to me looks the most different. And it really is going to be important that those folks have that knowledge over the summer so that they don't walk into the school year with that.
I've actually not met with our counselors yet. I'm meeting with their PLC next week. So thank you for the heads up. I actually, the coordinator for counselors is right down the hall. So when we finish, I'm going to go down there and tag her about this. But I also, you know, I think that by having those district level meetings, and they have their own Google Drive, that Google Share Drive, encouraging that collaboration between them to work on some of those pieces might be helpful. And I also kind of presented it as, guess what? You don't have a long range plan. This is really designed for much more appropriate for what you're doing, because those expectations have changed since 2003. So they, when I went with media, some of those components are still the same as they did with their long range plan, but I just kind of said, hey guys, you don't have to do a long range plan. Now is your turn to clap. And they were like, yay. And we just moved on, because they can't, I don't want to go too much into it now, because it's just the beginning. We'll hear about it and we'll talk more, and the more we talk, the more in depth it'll be.
Cheryl, I really appreciate you sharing that. As y'all are trying things out with educators, if there are things that you find that are sticking points like that, please let us know, because we want to help out this spring, and also have just like a general webinar for educators, where educators, you know, counselors, librarians, SLPs that are concerned can come talk to us and share with us their concerns, and we can kind of take some of that for you. So that really helps us. We also, you're making me think it might be helpful to send out some information to the school counselors listserv through the department, and just send some initial thinking, because the documents are really aligned to the new counseling model. But if that hasn't really been fully embraced in some places, in some schools, then it is really different. So we can maybe help with some of that communication, but it really helps to know that may be a sticking point some places, and you're just the first one hearing it, Cheryl, because you've been brave enough to talk to them.
And I think too, getting that information from multiple different avenues, because everybody's so inundated with information these days. You know, sometimes you have to hear it a couple of times before it kind of sticks.
Well, I know we're close to the bottom of the hour. I'm going to turn it back over to Faye just to field any other questions that we have. We'll certainly stick around, but thank you so much to Trish and to everyone, to Cheryl, to everyone that came out and shared what you're thinking about it. We really appreciate and know that the answers are with this brilliant group. And we're here to support however we can.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lila. And to everyone, again, this was a great time spent on collaboration. Thank you, Trish. We will make sure to add that resource on our next newsletter coming this third week of March. I do see some questions or maybe comments here. Just scroll quickly for me. Some comments here from Danny about the annual calendar, a bit unclear on how it updates the SC Lead status page. So we might have to look into that before we could respond to that comment, unless there's anybody else on our team that has encountered what Danny's bringing up that might shed some light.
Faye, I would mention, this is Beverly for everybody. I would mention that the, going back to the question about the materials and things, those for the school counselors align directly with ASCA certification for their schools. So that's a national thing, as well as part of the South Carolina, the new 2017 South Carolina model for school counselors. Also, I saw a couple, I did glance at the chat, and I saw a couple of requests for samples of the documents, samples of the completed documents, samples, videos. Those things we're building as we pilot. So we wanted to get some good South Carolina examples of those areas to be able to provide you all with. So if you're piloting and you have some examples, we would love for you to send those to us. You can send them to me and I'll get them where they need to go, or you can send them to Vicki or any member of the team and they'll get them to where we need them to be. And then as we go, the more exemplars you find, please share with us because we are still building and we would love your input. And that's all I had for that.
Thanks so much for that, Beverly. And also just to add on to the response to the question about our upcoming trainings, again, Rodney said it straightforward. We are still in the planning process. We did get your feedback on that. However, with the special areas train the trainer training, it will be all virtual. And any training that we schedule through the summer would still be virtual. All right, keep your questions coming. Please feel free to hop on the mic. We have 3 minutes left, but if anybody needs to get support later than that, you can always reach us via email and we will respond to you. Or if we need to stay on the line for you, we'll be happy to do that. Our contact information is showing on the slide. And we don't want to hold you. Thank you for spending time with us this afternoon. We will be sending out more information about training soon and also be sharing the resources that Trish is willing to share with you on our next newsletter.
For a small fee, no, Jesus.
We'll give you virtual hugs, Trish.
I need them.
Give you some hugs right now and rounds of applause.
Oh gosh, y'all take care. I've got to scoot. Have a good.
Thank y'all so much. We appreciate it.